Welcome to the Leo Zagami show with Leo and Christy. This is a 9/11 special anniversary edition, and we are of course here live from Palm Springs, California in an unusual Wednesday, September 11. Christy, why are we here on September
9/11, a terrible day for New York, America, Pentagon, a lot of people.
Yes, as a native New Yorker, as you are, this is something that touched you personally. You told me about the stories.
I think it touched so many Americans, but being a New Yorker, you know those places.
With your father, who at one point worked in the World Trade Center, so I mean...
and then he died, so
yeah,
shortly afterwards.
So this is something that touches you personally, and at the same time, this is the subject of one of the subjects of my newest book, volume 11. In fact, this 11 is built a little bit like the Twin Towers, and we want to thank the people who are purchasing this book, because guys, it's a bestseller. It's a bestseller. I mean, we're gonna now go and scroll down in all the various charts, but it is really becoming a bestseller, and I'm really glad about it. We have also, though, 9/11 as a subject, of course, of volume 10. Volume 10, Islamic Freemasonry and the Secret Societies Behind Eternal Conflict in the Middle East, while the newest book is based on mind control. It is the past, present, and future of mind control, from Sun Tzu to MK Ultra and beyond. Christy, who has made this show possible today, aside from the people who, of course, purchase our books, and amongst the books, this one. This one.
That's my bag.
The Family Cookbook.
I use it all the time.
And I must say, I just tasted from Christy an amazing dish, which I would like to show you. It's this is a gliccia. It's basically a sort of matriciana in bianco with piselli, with peas. Yes. So you want to quickly describe this recipe?
Well, darling, this recipe isn't in my cookbook.
I know, right. That's why I wanted to give this recipe to our viewers. This is an exclusive recipe that you can...
It's kind of like an amatrice. Well, it's a gliccia. And it just has peas in it, basically.
For those who don't know, matriciana is a kind of pasta which is made with guanciale. How you would describe guanciale to our American friends?
It's really good. It's like kind of like bacon, but it's thicker. You cook it like bacon. It gets crispy like bacon, but they're bigger pieces of it. It's really good. It's pretty salty and fattening, so you can't eat a lot of guanciale, but it's nice once in a while. But but this recipe I just had, so I just used them, and that's why. And I looked up, and you can do pancetta and peas, and it was a bunch of recipes in one, right? It was really good.
It was really good. Now, as we still have the music in the background, Christy, who made this show possible also as a sponsor? Today we have a sponsor.
Yeah, because normally we're not here on a Wednesday, but we said we'd come back if we got extra to come back, and we got extra. Daniel S., thank you very much for donating for today so we can have this special show. We normally wouldn't come back on this day, so I'm really appreciative to be able to talk on 9/11 and hear what he has to say about it. So it was very shocking to hear it was a mega ritual, and I didn't want to accept it at all. At the time, I told him he was a liar and that I didn't negotiate with terrorists. And then I hung up on him, and then I put it back.
This was like 15 years ago.
I know, that was when you had to break that to me right when we started talking. I was like, I told him that, but as you can hear, I was brainwashed. But now I know that we all got brainwashed in one way or another, in some way or another. So read his book, and you'll find out how, why, and what to do.
We will today cite from my books during this special. Of course, we need to open this special with today's anniversary commemorations that were done in New York, and there was actually an extraordinary Donald J. Trump once again had to shake the hand of Kamala Harris after yesterday's debate. Now there is, of course, a lot of controversy surrounding Trump's performance, but the main thing is that Trump actually was a gentleman, and he shook the hand of Kamala yesterday before the debate, and today look what happened in New York. Thank you to The Guardian for this little clip, but now let's start this this special show about this event as a mega ritual and also as a psyop. So there is two elements here that I would like to clarify today. The occult element, though occult is everything that is hidden, so there is many things that are actually hidden behind what happened on 9/11. And of course, we have also some interviews that Trump himself gave on the day it actually happened. He was not yet a politician, but he said some interesting stuff. First of all, I would like to open this whole show with an insight, of course, on the way that 9/11 was unfolded. And it was unfolded, of course, despite what everybody says. It's an inside job, yes, but it's also an inside-out job. That is the term I coined for volume 10 of my confessions, because the guys claiming it's only an inside job means getting off the leash the Muslim mercenaries that and the Islamic Illuminati who collaborated with their Western counterparts in this project, which was the biggest psyop ever, also considering that we have 9/11 as the psyop of the military-industrial complex. We have also, of course, the scandemic as the psyop of the big pharma. There is also that. No? Now, let me see here if I have all the videos ready for today's show. I'm trying to see I didn't miss anything, because it's very important I get everything right for you guys. And I will say that first of all, though, we should open with the actual event of today, and this moment of union, in any case, between Trump, Kamala Harris, Biden, and everybody else, because aside from the political divisions, this also needs to be a moment in which we also come together as a nation.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night
Welcome to the Leo Zagami show, and this, of course, was this year's anniversary in New York at Ground Zero, with the participation, as you see, of Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Bloomberg, Trump, J.D. Vance, and probably many others. I think it's always a solemn moment, should be respected, and this, of course, despite this moment was artificially created at the time to induce a psychological reaction. I mean, like I explained in volume 11 of my confessions, there is a couple of points here that need explanation, of course, and then we will go into the deep analysis also in the esoteric part of the analysis, the symbolism. George W. Bush, who was in this elementary school reading My Pet Goat as the ritual was unfolding, the pet goat ritual. We define this moment as a satanic moment because we know the relation between Baphomet and the goat, especially since 1855 with Eliphas Levi, who made this drawing that was then launched in 2012 as this giant statue symbol of the Satanic Temple, which is the latest evolution of modern Satanism. Welcome to the Leo Zagami show. Today we are here for this special anniversary edition of 9/11, thanks to our sponsors, because thanks to our sponsors we can bring you extra shows during the week. If, of course, we have such sponsors, we will deliver. We deliver what we promise to our audience. This is very important for us. And also, it came together coincidentally with an anniversary of great importance for us. So here we are. And if you want to support other shows during the week, you can do it on GoFundMe. You have it here on the screen. But let me go on volume 11. Volume 11, here we are on, let me see where we are here. This is my latest book dedicated to mind control. And in chapter 5, I have this 9/11 mega psyop and a mind control prison. Now, what does this mean? Let me first of all cite from the late Dr. Michael Aquino in regards to false flag operations. Aquino said, government, I'm putting here Aquino, government kills or allows to be killed their people when it is deemed necessary to create popular fear of and antagonism towards a scapegoat. Go back to the goat, you know, you have the pet goat, you have the scapegoat. Target that has itself not committed any such act. History is replete with examples exposed or still clouded in deception and suspicion. So, the CIA for 20 years did MK Ultra. The agency employed the expertise of former Nazis, but ultimately, when they needed the people who were willing to give up their life and they could be completely brainwashed with a religious book, which was the Quran, they decided, of course, to use the Islamic mercenaries of Al-Qaeda. Having said that, like I explained in volume 10, this is an alliance, almost 1,000-year-old alliance, which started with the Knights Templars and the Assassins. And of course, the Knights Templars and the Assassins came together because the Vatican and the Templars were inspired by these Islamic secret societies, and in particular, the Assassins became an asset against the expanding Sunni forces of Saladin. In regard to the PSYOPs, somebody is mentioning the Smith and Munt Act, which was reformed, as I explained in volume 11 of my confessions. It was reformed in 2012 with the excuse that Al Qaeda and ISIS were attacking and making themselves known to the Arab and Persian minorities here in the United States, and that they were actually psyoped by ISIS and Al Qaeda, which is a paradox, because in reality ISIS and Al Qaeda are two creations of the deep state, so you can't really psyop yourself. But that was an excuse that gave the possibility from that moment onwards to psyop the minorities present here in the United States without having legal problems. And it wasn't a repeal of the Smith and Mount Act, but it was an amendment. So as Americans, we could still profit by having this law that was passed in 1948 to protect our populations of psychological operations. However, Michael Anthony Hoffman II, a former reporter to the New York Bureau of the Associated Press, who is regarded a little bit with controversy because of his at times anti-Semitic stance, he published a book before 9/11. It was rather interesting in this regard. I'm talking about secret societies and psychological warfare, which I actually cite here in my latest book, volume 11 of my Confessions. So, Christy, can you read us what Michael Anthony Hoffman wrote? This here.
Just this part?
This part.
Okay.
Here.
In the study of mind control and psychological warfare, it is not enough to simply review the latest technology of coercion, the most recent gadgetry and techno junk littering the hardware and supply depots of governments and cults. Far more dangerous than these appliances are the proxies behind them, the underground current that informs the modern project and this modern era. For life in our modern era is little more than life in an open mind control laboratory.
I would like to pick it up from here. Life in the modern era is a little bit more than basically living in an open air mind control laboratory. I find this statement very important. Very important. And very consequential for where we are now. Somebody is saying, wasn't 9/11 orchestrated by Mossad? Listen, my friends, then you have not read volume 10. You
don't give yourself away. That was the second time. The first one, you gave yourself away.
No, but let me clear. No, the second one. Let me clear the position here, though, because of course there might have been elements in the Mossad, of course, collaborated. But basically, this is an inside-out job. It was the PNAC, which is a neocon organization that ceased to exist after George W. Bush terminated his presidential time as president of the United States. George W. Bush was initially regarded as a little bit more than just a demented fellow who happened to be the son of the head of the CIA, who also was the president of the United States, and of course both members of the Skull and Bones. So he was like, we have a saying in Italy, il scemo del villaggio, like the idiot of the village becomes the president. And he managed, but it's more complex than that. It's actually more complex than that. George W. Bush is not stupid. George W. Bush is actually quite Machiavellic himself. And so, first of all, here I say the form of human alchemy has emerged to transform the mass of targeted percipients, targeted merely by virtue of their being urban dwellers plugged into the electronic and digital pageantry of the establishment system of things. What does this mean? It means that we have been under constant mind war and psychological operation since 9/11, and of course, with the latest scandemic from 2020, that was like the big pharma style, while the other one was the military industrial complex one. Now, when it comes to the people responsible for 9/11, it's very important to understand that the Skull and Bones, George W. Bush, George Bush father, and everybody who was involved, Dick Cheney, who now sustains Kamala Harris, how can you not see clearly who these people are? It's pretty obvious who these people are. They don't even hide themselves. I mean, they're all Neo-Templars. They claim to be the heirs of the old Templars, and that's why they rebuilt this alliance with the Islamic assassins. And people like Muhammad Atta, like I explained in volume 10, they were basically like the old assassins, very much connected with Egypt. If we talk about the Nizari, the Assassins of the Old Man of the Mountain, he was initiated in the Cairo Lodge. The Cairo Lodge of the Illuminati, one of the most powerful lodges there is in the world. Still, to this day, the seat of immense power in the Middle East. That's why every time the Qataris, Mossad, Shin Bet, CIA, everybody needs to come together, they do it in Cairo. 9/11 was important because 10 years earlier, George Bush father, I want to call him George Bush father, George H. Bush senior, he made a speech where he actually announced a new world order. I mean, he was pretty blatant about, pretty open about it. But how you arrive to a new world order once the Soviet Union has ended, once the big antagonist is gone, you have to create a new one. You have to create a new enemy. That was really something that these people needed. And I explained this in my book. I mean, in volume 10 in particular, I explained that there was an organization called PNAC that was established by these neocons, so they could find a new enemy. And just so people don't fall into disinformation, it's Mossad. Yeah. And what about George W. Bush with the Saudi prince who was in charge of the ambassador here in the United States, who later on became the head of Saudi intelligence and who helped also the establishment of ISIS during Barack Hussein Obama's time? I mean, guys, things need to be a little bit more.
Not like that chapter in your book. I got through it somehow, but.
President Bush is a close friend of Prince Bandar, which I showed you in the pic. They met on August 27, 2002. I mean, that's like almost a year to the date after having started the war on terror. They were the terror. They were the terror. And so this is really about trying to understand these massive psychological operations that unfortunately affect millions of people. I mean, I'm sure that you all have your own experiences. I'm gonna ask Christy because she's next to me, but every single American, especially Americans who have militaries in their family, who come from a military background, well, 9/11 was very much felt. It was an important moment. It was like suddenly they came to the realization that they had to find an enemy. So let's find an enemy. And the enemy later on was found artificially. I explain in my latest book how the Italians, those crooks of the Italian military intelligence, SISMI, created the fake weapons of mass destruction for Colin Powell and for the neocons to be able to then invade Iraq, arrest Saddam Hussein, sentence him. It's about really understanding certain elements of psychological warfare. Here in my latest book, and I'm going to cite from my latest book, The Induction of Terror into the Mass Mind of Americans in Association with Certain Keywords and Key Symbols or sigils in connection with control.
Sigils, right? Like those things the witches use.
Yeah, I mean, there was a mass persuasion, a dark persuasion inflicted on the American mind on 9/11. Christy, what did you feel? I mean, you were at the time in Japan in a military base. You saw this news from America. Of course, you, like everybody else, was shocked. But remember, this shock was induced. They knew exactly what they were doing. And that's really...
I just wish during that time, I wish I would have known you so I could have told my dad something. My dad, he was like really triggered by 9/11, and I was in Japan, and so I was apart from him. He wouldn't come to Japan and visit me because it was too close to Vietnam, and he had PTSD. And so I saw him one time. I went back and saw him, but I hadn't seen him, and I was waiting to see him, but he didn't make it. And I went back in 2001, and he took his own life. But he was like a prepper. He was one of the first ones, I think. I mean, there probably are a lot of people that were doing that, but for me and my family that were really brainwashed, I mean, it must have been very hard for him to be around all of us, and we were all like either one side or another brainwashed, and so he just checked out, and he didn't want to see it all.
He was a war hero,
but he did it because he knew he had like premonitions, and so he knew that what was coming. Maybe he didn't know exactly what was coming, but he knew something was coming, and he knew he didn't want to be here for it, and so he left. And in Japan, I that's honorable. So, but I forgive my father. So now I understand that it must have been very hard on him. So that's my story. It's not really about me. It's about my dad. And when I heard about it, I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. It really I just couldn't believe it. But it brought out another. I mean, I've always been very patriotic, but I was surrounded by the military. And my ex-husband left, and he put his pack on, and I didn't see him anymore. He left, because everybody was deploying at that time. So he was gone, and I felt it from over on the other side of the world, and it still felt really strong. It felt shocking, and I cried. I cried with New York for a year. I cried for New York, and then I kept on crying because then I didn't have my dad anymore. So I kept on crying. So I've been crying a long time about this.
Now, before we go into the details of what it's also a mega ritual together with it's not only a mega tribe but a mega ritual. In fact, I actually state that in volume 11 of my confessions. It's an important statement that they made because it is like I state here, not only a mega ritual but also a mega cycle that transformed the hearts and souls of most Americans forever. This is and guys,
it changed us.
I repeat, those people who blame the Jews for it, with their ignorance, the dancing Jews and all that kind of urban legend around the 9/11. Guys, you're only helping Islam. Islam is going to rape your daughters and rape your world soon, guys. And you're going to have to really learn.
You wouldn't think that anymore, the way the people in... I don't know. I mean, it looks like freaking Islam in New York City now, so I don't know what's going on.
But I mean, when you see these people protesting for Gaza in the streets and everything around it with flags of terrorist organization paraded along the flag of Palestine, I really think that people need to go back in time. Will they ever accept?
They weren't even here. The people that are doing it weren't even here.
Of course, because they're millennials. But
some parents should remind them, hello, they were here. Yes. I blame the parents.
Well, the parents, of course. This is it is shocking to learn for a lot of people that this is an inside-out job. And blaming only one group of people is not going to get you anywhere. Because this is a complex collaboration between the deep state in all its aspects, that includes elements of the Sabbatean Frankist world as well as the Jesuit world, all the various knighthoods of the Vatican. I have denounced this for many years. I risked my life doing this, denouncing the people who were effectively operating on behalf of the Illuminati that day, people like Comandante Giorgio Ugo Balestrieri of the Rotary Club at the United Nations and other figures. So it's important that we clear, and he of course collaborated at times with the Mossad, but it wasn't only the Mossad, because it was, I repeat, a way that these people wanted to, they wanted to reestablish America as the leading force in this new world order, okay? And I think that in the end, the wars that were triggered as a response give you all the answers. I mean, what have we achieved in Afghanistan? What have we achieved in Iraq? In Iraq, we are about to leave. I think by 2025, 2026, all our troops will be out of there. Afghanistan, we left with, in the most humiliating way, with the Taliban taking control of over $1 billion of our military assets that include the latest helicopters, tanks, this, and now you see them parading. I mean, the Taliban guys, these people had nothing when we arrived there. I remember there was, there was Al Qaeda and there was a bit of money around Osama bin Laden. And then there was this mythical guy who was, I think, bin Laden had married one of his daughters, I don't know, the Mullah, I don't know. It was the one guy with an eye, only with one eye, with the old motorcycle. People in Afghanistan working either for the Taliban, meaning part of the Taliban or part of Al Qaeda. The maximum technology they could aspire to was an old AK-47, a Kalashnikov, a remain of the Soviet war. Nowadays, I repeat, they have the latest technology, courtesy of us, of Joe Biden, of Kamala Harris. And that is something that I think Trump should have brought up in a more, he, of course, at one point touched on it. But yesterday, there were certain opportunities that for some reason Trump missed. And one of the opportunities would have been to, of course, clarify what he did to eliminate people like the head of ISIS and, of course, the Islamic Caliphate, and then all the rest that goes along with him basically limiting the entrance from all those states in the Middle East, which often bring us on this side of the world the terrorists. Now, then you have people here in the chat, Palestine, this and that. Palestine, is not really of our interest here, because Palestine is the place where the day after 9/11, and Palestine doesn't really exist as a nation, but I'm talking about the areas where the Palestinians are, just like in Lebanon also, they were rejoicing, shouting death to America and burning the American flag. So I don't know what's wrong with you guys, and you continue to support this idiotic Palestinian agenda. You definitely have a problem with your memory. And it's okay. You can continue to insult us, saying, what a Jew here, this and that, spewing your anti-Semitic
God's watching. You don't want to do that right now. God's watching everything we're doing right now. And if you're not nice, it's going to make you really ugly, and it's going to show up on the outside, and you're going to look like your soul. And ugly souls are evil, and they say evil things, and the ones that are with God are going to say the truth, and the ones that have God will see it.
They have not. Just a second. They have. No. It's important that we focus on 9/11. And that day, people claim there were Jews dancing around. Well, I will invite the same people who make this kind of accusation for maybe a limited group of people who they claim was dancing of Jewish faith. I will simply have invited them in every single capital of the Middle East that was, they were partying that day. They were burning American flags, shouting death to America, and it was like finally they won, I don't know, a soccer or football tournament. This is the reality. So when you are, the alternative media, or people like Alex Jones, who is nowadays siding with people like Nick Fuentes, or people who are definitely not in line with Trump when it comes down to Israel, because Trump was actually a guy who worked with both sides and managed to accomplish a certain degree of peace. Okay, so that
we all want peace.
Yeah,
we all want peace. That's what we all want.
Yeah.
And we don't have it right now. You just got to look. If you want to make an easy decision, they both showed themselves. So you saw 4 years of Trump, and you know what you get with Trump. We all know what we get with Trump, but at least we had a great country.
Well, we get a great country.
We have a great country, and that's what matters. And now, right now, the country is the worst it's ever been. Nobody has any money. And so she's been there, and she hasn't done anything. And yeah, he should have said that.
Who?
Trump, he should have just concentrated. He did some really
smart
stuff.
I mean, he said a lot of smart stuff. He actually, the problem is this is the Trump post after his attempted assassination, which, like I described in this book, was moved by the deep state. And in fact, yesterday, amongst other things, it was the day in which Melania Trump asked questions surrounding what happened to her husband. Here is Melania.
And my husband's life was a horrible, distressing experience. Now, the silence around it feels heavy. I can't help but wonder, why didn't law enforcement officials arrest the shooter before the speech? There is definitely more to this story, and we need to uncover the truth.
Now I will invite Melania to read this book. She might get all the answers she needs, because this attempt to murder Trump by the deep state will have just followed the many successful assassinations, unfortunately, that followed the JFK's assassination. Then we had Martin Luther King's assassination, Bobby Kennedy's. All these people, including even John Lennon, they were assassinated by the deep state. They have a technology which is described in this book in detail. Mind control technology has been developed for hundreds of years, as psychological operations are nothing new. They were presented even before Christ came around by Sun Tzu in his Art of War. But we have now a more codified form of mind control since the advent of psychology. And then, of course, conditioning with Pavlov's experiment. And later on, we have all the other experiments that followed in the Soviet Union. Then during the Nazi period in concentration camps, they used the Jews as guinea pigs for the mind control experiments. But you like to blame the Jews. Yes, you like to blame. Continue to blame the Jews. That's it. I mean, those were the first victims of MK Ultra before MK Ultra even existed, because those scientists were then brought here to work on MK Ultra. So, I mean, and this is, so I really don't understand what's wrong with you guys. Really, you need to read, you definitely need to read this book. I mean, it costs only $15.99. We put it on sale since Labor Day. We wanted to make it accessible to everybody. And I think that people will understand a lot reading this book. Now
there's no sides in it, really.
I mean, it's not a question. I mean, it's not a question of taking sides. It's a question of facts.
Yeah.
Facts and not speculation. You can't, I repeat, condemn a race when we have described in the last chapter of this book that there's no race to be condemned, but there is the Illuminati, the Sabbatean Frankists that infiltrated the Jewish religion and have taken it over and transformed in this progressive Jewish faith, which today is the shadow of its former self. In many situations here in America, the Jews you see in Hollywood, those people, and I dedicated a whole book to that, volume 8, are Sabbatean Frankists. They're heretic.
A lot of them do like black magic.
And a lot of them do black magic. They seem to be involved in the occult.
Yeah, that definitely.
It's.
I've actually met Jews that are involved in the occult. So.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it because they think they're smart, but.
Well. Let's move further in understanding more about 9/11, because this subject will make us understand more and more how people like the CIA behavioral scientist, Dr. Evan Cameron, who did all those experiments at Project 68 of MK Ultra, especially in Canada, he turned this he created this psychic driving, and you see, 9/11 was a ritual, a magnified ritual. It was a ritual with a purpose to affect the subconscious mind of all Americans, and it actually was successful, unfortunately. Now, the fact that we had also the sacrifice of nearly 3,000 people that day. That is a sacrifice.
Oh,
that is a
so
human
terrible.
sacrifice.
That is so terrible. It's just really, really, really bad.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, guys,
it just is sad and horrible.
Sad and definitely.
I wouldn't want to be one of the people.
But I mean, the most incredible thing in all this, Chris, is that yesterday Kamala Harris didn't mention once 9/11. She didn't mention once 9/11, and she had the courage of saying that the worst attack on a democracy was January 6th. I mean, and she said that on the eve of 9/11.
That's terrible.
Left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what?
She was trying to trigger him.
Where is 9/11?
The snowflake was trying to trigger.
Okay. She was there today in front of the cameras because she had to be there. But I mean, guys,
we see through her though. We can't. Nobody.
I think that Trump did a great thing yesterday when he said, the actual homicide that was conducted by this.
He said good thing.
I mean, that guy killed that patriot. That woman.
Ashley Babbitt. I'm glad you mentioned her.
Yes, that was definitely.
And then there's.
There were different things that Trump said that were actually very good.
And they probably are eating.
No, that is something that we will also discuss in the second part of the show. But now, for the first part of the show, I want to show you, before we end up this first part, Donald J. Trump back in the day, just a couple of hours after the attacks. Actually, I think a couple of days after the attacks. It was fresh still. I mean, the attacks were fresh. I have also another video by German TV that's just a few hours after the attacks, and we're going to also show that.
Moments ago, Donald Trump passed through here, so we had a minute to talk with him. Let's roll that tape. You can see what he had to say.
Well, I've never seen anything like it. I've seen two huge 110-story buildings that are reduced to rubble. Thousands and thousands of lives. I just got to see something that I've never seen before. I have hundreds of men inside working right now, and we're bringing down another 125 in a little while, and they've never done work like this before. And they're hardworking people, but they've never seen anything like it, and they've never done work like this before. It's terrible.
Tell me what it's like at Ground Zero. Tell me about the workers that you saw and what they're doing there.
Well, not only is it devastation, but it's very dangerous because every few minutes a whistle would go off and everybody would just run because you have all the buildings around it, which are in such a weakened state that people just don't know. And so they just have to take off. And then they come back and they're working under 50-story buildings that you don't know if they're going to fall down. So it's a terrible thing for the workers, and it's a terrible thing for the world, really.
How have you spoken to any of your men? Do you know how they're reacting to this? Because emotionally, this must be so incredibly difficult.
Well, there are a lot of them, but they've never seen bodies like this. I mean, the bodies all over. The great thing is when they find somebody that's alive, like the 5 firemen that they just found a little while ago. So that's the great thing, and that's what they're all striving for. But generally speaking, that's not the case. So they are working very, very hard, but it's a very depressing situation for these folks.
As you walked around and as you saw the piles of rubble, there are thousands of families out there who are hoping that someone might be in a pocket somewhere, still alive, still breathing, waiting to be dug up. As you assessed that damage from your perspective, do you believe that's possible?
Well, I would certainly not want to be the one to say it's not possible. Certainly it's a tough situation, but you can't give up hope because there's always hope. I mean, the 5 men, I'm sure their families thought that they probably were gone, and now they walk in the door. A couple of them walked away after they were dug out. So there probably are some more people in there, and therefore you can't give up hope.
You've had an impact on the skyline of New York. What is it like as you see it now?
It's like a whole different skyline. It's like a whole different city and world. I cannot believe the sight of Lower Manhattan without the World Trade Center, and therefore we have to rebuild, not necessarily in that form, but we have to rebuild at least as good and maybe better.
Just finally, can you tell me emotionally as you walked around, we've heard some of the stories from the firemen. They're so exhausted and mentally and physically. What was it like for you personally to go in and see all of what you saw?
Well, it was amazing to see it. It was a very depressing scene, but I'll tell you what, you really can take heart. These firemen and policemen and the construction workers equally, the courage they have is unbelievable. I mean, they're working, digging out and lifting up steel, and above them you have 55-story buildings that are very possibly going to be pouring down on them any minute, and they're working like nothing's wrong. I mean, they're amazing.
Donald J. Trump, still the same. His hair, everything. Now, of course, 23 years later, here we have Donald J. Trump still with the firefighters today in New York. Let me show you this this moment today. And there was, of course, also a funny moment with the kid went to Trump. I mean, it's nice to actually also have these clips to show each other. Kind of funny. The kid said to Trump, "Make America great again." Great kid, great kid. Okay, guys, I see you for part 2 of this show. After the traditional track of Vincenzo Viceversa with the visuals by Albert Telepandemia, we decided to save the best for part 2 on X and Rumble. We are broadcasting on 2 channels on Rumble. We had some problems with Rumble today. Unfortunately, for some reason, I had to change at the last minute the old link. Well, guys, go on Rumble. Leo Zagami channel is very easy to find, or go on X. There's a blue check mark profile of Leo Lion Zagami on X. I see you for part 2 there with Christy.
See you over there.
And let's thank the sponsor once
Thanks,
again.
Daniel Estes, for this show.
See you soon.
In that time, our world has taken so many steps in the wrong direction. Negative technology, social organization,